Welcome to the City Manager's Report. The City Manager's Report is your preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda and an update from your Oshkosh City Manager. Your hosts, Emily Makowski of Oshkosh Community Media and City Manager Mark Roloff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on your City Manager's Report. I'm your host, Emily Makowski, as always joined by your City Manager, Mark Roloff. And as always, we'll devote the first half of the show to some current events going on around here in Oshkosh, some hot topics, ask a quick question to Mark from the community, and then we'll take a quick break and then dive into the council agenda for June 10th, 2014. So as always, thanks again for joining us, Mark.
Great to be here, Emily.
So we'll just go ahead and get right into these hot topics here. On top of everybody's list, I think, is this big news from Bemis, Bemis expansion possibility here, having to do with the TIF district actually in here. What can you tell us about that?
Well, this is a project that we've been hoping was going to be able to come to fruition for a number of years. Had discussions with representatives from Perfect Seal, which is a division of Bemis. That's their medical packaging division, and they do a lot with highly sanitary conditions. They have what are called clean rooms because this is packaging that's used in packaging medical products, so they have to be 100% sanitary and whatnot. Mm-hmm. They've been looking to expand somewhere in their network, and they've considered various locations to do this expansion, including offshore facilities out of the country. And certainly we wanted them to expand here if at all possible. So during the discussions, we talked about closing the gap because they estimated that it would cost about $25 million for them to expand here in Oshkosh, but $19.5 million to expand elsewhere. So they asked if there was anything we could do to help close that gap. And we did a couple things. One is we identified some development incentives that we could directly provide them through the formation of a TIF district, tax increment financing district, where we would be able to give them a development incentive grant on what's called a pay-as-you-go basis, or a PAYGO. What that means is that as they pay property taxes and as they demonstrate they've generated a certain value in their property, and they produce the jobs that they're talking about generating, then we would provide them an incentive for up to 10 years of about $2 million when all is said and done. Mm-hmm. That was one thing. We worked with them closely to apply for some tax credits from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. So we're really happy that we're able to work with the state on this as well. And then finally, they were going to need some stormwater improvements to make this thing work. And they really weren't going to be able to do it on site, which could have just blown up the whole project completely. So we've identified some things we can do to benefit not just them, but the entire region out there, the entire North Industrial area, with some stormwater facilities that would benefit them and the surrounding areas. So sometimes when you do a TIF district, you want to see that you're not just benefiting that property, but you're giving a little payback to the entire city. Right. The payback to the entire city in this case will be because these ponds benefit everybody because we're all paying for them with stormwater rates. So if we can use the TIF district to pay for some of these improvements, that'll spare the need to use stormwater fees for that purpose.
Mm-hmm. And I know most of the media was focusing on the chance of jobs coming to Oshkosh as well with this.
The jobs are great. I mean, we're talking about 160 new jobs. The wages average from $35,000 to $53,000 a year, so they're good paying jobs. We're real happy that that's a possibility. But the stormwater improvements are something we need to do out there anyway. So the district is actually larger than Bemis itself. It's going to be generally on the north side Snell Road, west side Jackson, east side Moser, and the south side Fernau. So it's
a big area.
It's a huge area, a lot of industrial there. So the other industrial areas will also benefit if we can get the right stormwater improvements in there.
Okay, so what are the conditions of this? You said it was a $2 million grant. What's the details on that?
Well, they have to produce a certain level of taxes, a certain value to the property, maintain that value of that property. Otherwise, we can't give them any more than that. And then the jobs itself, we will craft a development assistance grant that puts both of those criteria in there, and they have to meet both of them in order for this incentive to go through. So we believe that something like this, when you talk about the economic impact of 160 jobs maintained for a long period of time, you're going to get much more back in economic activity than the $2 million in incentives.
Great. And what's exactly the timeline on this? It's still in the very, very early stages, correct?
It is. There's several things that have to happen. First off, it has to get reviewed and approved by our Plan Commission. It has to get approved, not just recommended. It's got to get approved. Then the council has to take a look at it. They have to approve the formation of the district. And then all of the taxing entities where the tax dollars are being diverted in there, that consists of the technical college, the school district, the county, and the city, along with a general citizen member. All 5 of those representatives vote on this, and that's the final stage before it gets officially becomes a TIF district.
Great. And so that's something that we can kind of see within the next year or so, you would think?
Oh, no, it's probably going to be in the next 6 to 8 weeks,
excellent.
I would imagine. Just going to go to the Plan Commission on June 17th. It'll probably go to council, maybe not June 24th. It depends on how quickly it moves. It may go the early part of July. Joint Review Board will get it probably in late June, early July.
Okay, a lot faster than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Last week, or excuse me, a couple weeks ago, at the last council meeting, the budget schedule was discussed. What kind of things came out of that discussion for 2015?
For 2015, yeah. One of the things that the council talked about was that they would like to be included in the process earlier than what we had previously done. In the past, they didn't get anything until they got the final budget, the first part of October. They would like to be more included in the early part of the process to get an idea of what things we're facing, what's the economy looking like, what are state aids looking like, where are expenditure trends going. So they asked for a series of pre-budget workshops before they get the budget. Fill us in on what the big picture items are. So
kind of get a grasp on a lot of those things?
Yeah, so that they know it, so that when the budget's delivered, it's not all new to them. So it's really preparing them for whatever the budget may entail, and fewer surprises, frankly, so that when they open the budget, yes, I remember us talking about this or that. So it's what are our assumptions going to be on wages for employees? What are our assumptions going to be on revenues, fees, taxes, those types of things, because we have to make those assumptions in order to produce the budget document in the first place. So get that kind of feedback, see where they're coming from. If they have some initial thoughts on the matter, they'll let us know.
Okay, and kind of give staff a little bit of a chance to educate them as well on the different things that they'll be facing, right?
Right, there's a lot of moving parts to a budget, and when you think of something like Public Works, fuel and salt and oil, those things are very important to them. Personnel is very important to police and fire, so it depends on the department. So we want to make sure that the council's aware of all the elements that go into the budget, so that when they do get it, they have a better feel for it. And again, no surprises is really the key there.
And they're wanting to do this. Does this kind of come from past experiences with the budget? I know last year was a very extensive process, and maybe that might have something to do with them wanting to start a little bit earlier this year?
They like the fact that last year we did give them a lot of advance information, so they want to continue that. In previous to 2013, they were just given the budget in October and said, okay, you got 4 weeks to review and approve this thing. Now it gives them more time to absorb it, to communicate it to the public. So I think in the end, we'll have a better product for everybody.
Great. And there will be a work session coming up on Wednesday, July 23rd, and they'll basically just be talking about those things you were just saying as far as knowing a little bit earlier and the plan, really.
All the assumptions. That's probably the first step is to get our arms around the assumptions for 2015.
Excellent. Some other big news here is the Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation, which is still kind of grand spanking new, you were saying earlier, have officially incorporated. That's kind of some big news here.
Right. This is also known as Go EDC. You'll probably hear a lot about that. Yes, we formally incorporated, so we're now the Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation. We actually formed two 501c3 and c4 corporations, one for fundraising, one for fulfilling the duties of furthering economic development in the community. We've got a draft strategic plan, a draft communications plan, and we're working on bylaws so that on July 9th, we're hoping to formally get all those governing issues and organizational issues adopted, and then start identifying and how we want to implement the strategic plan, what it's going to take, what funds we're going to need to raise, and membership to that group so that we can get people engaged in economic development. A lot of great ideas, but a lot of them have been in the works for a number of years. We've done different studies and with different groups, so we've got a lot of information, and this involves a good deal of the business community is very engaged in this, along with all the other governmental and nonprofit entities that have a stake in economic development. A lot of different players, but we want a large, broad-based board of directors, but also a very active executive committee to keep things moving along. So really excited about it. July 9th will be our organizational meeting, and we'll take it from there.
Yes, and I know a few months ago, I think when we were talking about this, you said there's kind of an interim board of directors, and so that's also on the list of things for them to kind of have more permanency
right
there?
This
Okay.
interim group has been doing all this legwork to
Right.
finalize things, so now it's a matter of formalizing it, get the permanent group together, and then move forward from there.
Excellent, exciting stuff. I'm excited to see all the great things that are going to come out of the Go EDC, and it's kind of been a long time coming, I think.
Yeah, it sure has.
So it's finally summer here, which means it's construction season. We've got a lot. You might have started to see some construction going on in the streets and some orange cones up. So what are some of the big things we want to look out for here in Oshkosh this summer?
Well, there's a number of projects, but there's 3 really big projects right now. This one is literally right across the street from City Hall.
Just got started, too.
Yeah, it says Central Street, Parkway Avenue. Those are the big streets that are getting dug up. This is technically the Division Street watershed. This is also the Middle Village area. The primary impetus for these street improvements are stormwater. We're doing water mains, we're doing sanitary sewer mains, we're doing the street, of course, and those are all important and they're all needed. But the storm sewer dates back to the 1880s, if you can believe it.
I can't believe that. That's
It's just
crazy.
incredible. So that's something that was the big part of this. Remember last year we dug up City Hall parking lot? This is the next phase of that, because now we're going to collect the water that will go to the underground pond underneath our parking lot. So it's a phased-in project. This is really the final phase. And look at the size of that storm sewer pipe that you're
crazy.
seeing right there. That's
the storm sewer pipe.
That's a box culvert that holds all that water.
Wow.
This Division Street watershed goes all the way up to New York Avenue. So this is going to take a lot of work. So this is the project you're going to see in and around the City Hall, Middle Village area for the next few months. But it's going to be a huge benefit. The other one is Bowen Street. Again, we're doing water, we're doing sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and streets. But in the case of Bowen Street, it's sanitary sewer that's the real issue there. We have undersized sanitary sewer there. We're using a lift station to pump some of that. We want to get rid of lift stations because those are things that can fail when you have electrical issues. And we're going to be able to divert our sanitary sewer by making it bigger on Bowen Street and move it farther south. So we're real happy that we're going to be able to get that done. And then finally, the big stormwater detention project is called the Armory Stormwater Detention Pond. Depending on where you live, you have a different point of perspective on where it is. If you shop along Keller quite a bit and you're over by the Best Buy store, immediately behind the Best Buy is where you're going to see it. This was probably the runner-up for the question mark this week because I was asked a question multiple times over the past week, what's going on behind Best Buy? Well, it's the stormwater pond that we're building there, and you can see at the south end of that pond, to the left is where the Best Buy store is, so that kind of gives you a point of reference for where we're at. Keller is to the left on the screen, and then the residential area, some people call it Huntington Downs, is immediately to the north of the larger part of the pond, and then the Armory is to the south and the east of this pond. We purchased the northern part of the property from the Armory, from the National Guard, and the Best Buy store used to be the old Menard store. The storage yard in the back there is not needed for Best Buy, so we bought it from those property owners, and so that's why you see the
all
sort
that
of
concrete there.
all the concrete and kind of the odd shape there. You'll see that with this graphic there that we did get some funding. We got some grant funding from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, as well as the state of Wisconsin, that had to do with lots of flooding that happened in this area immediately to the north and the east. The Huntington Downs area was flooded terribly. This is the area that actually contributed to the flooding over at Lourdes Academy. So you get an idea. This is a big area. This stretches from Franklin Elementary School all the way to Lourdes and everywhere in between. So this is Campbell Creek, but it's a great project that will take the whole season. But
it'll really benefit a lot of
yes,
people.
and because of the flooding that occurred in '08, that's why FEMA and the state of Wisconsin Department of Emergency Management have made funding available for this. They recognize the need for this. So a lot of digging behind the Best Buy store and behind Huntington Downs and behind the Armory this year. That graphic you saw is actually a sign that I don't even know where it's at because it's not really accessible there.
Not really, unless you're in the little residential area back there.
Yeah, if you live over on Crystal Springs, you might see it.
Set up your lawn chair in the backyard like we were saying before we started today.
Sure,
Take
people like to look at
construction.
it. That's great, but it's a great project and it's overdue, it's needed, and you will see benefits to Campbell Creek in the coming years.
Excellent. So a lot of projects to look forward to this summer that we'll be seeing while we're driving or even if we're back by Best Buy over there.
There you go.
We wanted to take a minute and congratulate our transportation employee who is retiring after 44 years, Jen Weigand. I think I'm saying her name right. 44 years with the city. So congratulations, Jen, and thank you for your service.
Wow, Jen started in 1970. Jen, I hate to tell you this, I was in grade school when you started with the city, and that was long before you were born, right, Emily?
Just a little bit,
yeah. Jen started over at City Hall when City Hall was we'd take it over from the school district, and worked in the clerk's office and administration for a number of years, and then she started with the transportation department when Oshkosh Transit went from a private agency to a public agency back in the mid to late 70s.
So she's been there through it all, really, for
she has been there the entire length of Oshkosh/Go Transit. So Jen's been a wonderful employee, and we're going to miss her.
Yes. Going on here, we're getting to about the half point of our show here, so we're going to go ahead and see what question we've got this week. A chance for anyone in the community to ask your city manager a question. So let's go ahead and see what it is this week. Mark, so the question this week is, why do city employees remove signs from the terrace? And that's a really good question.
We get asked this a lot, especially this time of year. Rummage sale signs, real estate signs, political signs even. Anything in the terrace is technically public right-of-way. And there's a couple reasons. Some are safety, most are safety-based, but it's also a matter of it's public property, not private property. So you could start a slippery slope. If you allow one, you're allowing all sorts of things. What would prevent somebody from advertising their business or this or that? So the practical side of it is it's public property, and so that shouldn't be used for private purposes. But a lot of it's safety. Some of the signs are put at corners so people can see. That creates vision problems for people turning, can cause accidents. You may not see a pedestrian, a bicyclist, and things like that. And then we don't actively go out and take these down. The employees generally use their discretion. It's not a priority. If they're off doing something else and they see it, they may or may not take it down. But I can tell you that our electrical division is probably going to be the one looking at it more than anybody. And people say, well, why does the electrical division care? In the public right-of-way, it's public right-of-way because we put utilities down there. And that is not just water and sewer and things like that. It's WPS electrical lines. It's fiber optic cable that's either owned by one of the telephone or cable companies or the city. And you pierce a fiber optic cable it's thousands of dollars, incredible inconvenience, and it's also not safe. I mean, you hit an electrical line or a gas line, you could get hurt, even killed. So we do it for safety reasons. I know a lot of people think that we're overreacting, but we have to be consistent. We have to be fair to everybody, but it truly is a safety issue. So if you want to put a sign on the other side of the sidewalk,
that's
your
yard.
property.
Yep.
I would still encourage you to call Digger's hotline to find out, but you really need to have those signs on the private side rather than the public side.
So if residents see any of these signs, if I'm walking down the sidewalk and I see one in the terrace, should I pick it up or?
I don't know if I would go that far. I mean, I would call, if you want to call the city, we'll be happy to go out and take a look at it. We don't want anybody vigilanteism or anything like that that could be viewed as being inappropriate. So call us. You can call, Public Works, Transportation, and we'll get out and get it.
Great. Well, that was a good question for this time, I think. If you'd like to send Mark a question, you can email it to questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us. We're going to take a quick break here in the show, and when we come back, we'll dive into the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, June 10th.
Thinking about dealing drugs in our county? Think again.
Take it slow, take it slow, take it slow. When we see a roundabout, take it slow. Then we pick the correct lane and take it slow. When we see a car approach, we yield to the left. When we're in that roundabout, we don't pass anybody yet. Take it slow, take it slow, take it slow.
Visit WisconsinRoundabouts.com for more info from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to your City Manager's Report, and thank you for joining us. It's now that time of the show to go ahead and dive into the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, June 10th. And we've got a lot to talk about here, starting off with the 5 o'clock meeting with Council for a workshop on sex offender placements. And this is kind of for Council to learn about what's behind the process of this, right?
Correct. The Council has had a lot of questions about sex offenders getting located in the city. They want to learn more about it. We're going to have representatives from the Department of Corrections explaining the process that they use and the notification procedures that we go through so that the public's aware of it. I think people are concerned there's a concentration of them and try to get a better explanation for that. The real key for us is we want to make sure that sex offenders don't go underground. So we want to make sure that we do know where they're at. And while the information may be a little disconcerting to the public, we want them to know that there's a value to knowing where they're at, because if they go underground, we may lose track of them completely.
Moving on to our first item here, Resolution 14-252, engineering services with Brown and Caldwell for development of a stormwater management plan. And this is kind of having to deal with what we talked about with the Bemis expansion, right?
Correct. This is the Furnow Avenue area watershed, which is much larger than that area I talked about with Bemis, but it's that area. We needed to do this study anyway, so given the fact that the Bemis stuff moved up when it did, we've just shifted which plans we're going to do first. This will identify what projects we need for this general area. Then we'll determine some of this might be able to be funded with TIF dollars, and so we're hoping to do that. So we'll invest a little bit of money here on the front end with the stormwater utility, and maybe the TIF will be able to pay for a lot of these projects down the road.
Great. And so this is something, like you said, regardless of whether or not the Bemis, the TIF was going to be done anyway. This would be happening, whether
Yeah.
or not it's depending on that TIF
This
money.
was very necessary regardless. So, yep, we're going to get this done one way or the other.
Great. All right, moving on here, Resolution 14-256, approve the master plan for South Park. And this process started actually a year ago, I think. So
Yeah.
we had some meetings going on.
The Parks Department conducts a lot of meetings with the public to get input. This part of the public meeting that was held over at the Senior Center a year ago. So through that process, the public has pretty much said what they've said at a lot of other places. We got a great park system. Let's maintain what we have. We don't need to add a bunch of things over at any of the parks. In the case of South Park, the restrooms are long overdue for replacement, but we wanted to make sure that anything else we did over there was consistent with the long-term plan. So this will get the ball rolling on a restroom over there, but also said maintain what we have, maintain the quality, address stormwater over there. Those are the types of things that we heard from the public and from staff and from the Parks Board.
Freshening up at South Park, so it'll be good. Resolution 14-259, award bid for emergency generator for City Hall. And this is replacing a generator that's over 50 years old, so this is definitely needed.
Yeah, this was purchased when we converted from the high school to City Hall here 50 years ago. So it's long in need of replacement. And somebody asked, well, why do you need this? It's really just an office building. Well, it can be an emergency operations center. OCMS is operated out of here to the degree that we need to communicate with the public. We need that emergency generator capability. So after 50 years, this was probably a pretty good investment.
Probably a good time to do it. So moving on here, Ordinance 14-265. It's kind of been a long-running issue here in Oshkosh, is the approval of left turn regulations at Main Street and Merritt. So 1 year since the last change, and now they're kind of thinking about doing something else here.
This is an ongoing issue. Staff and the traffic committee have been going back and forth on this issue. Right now, left turns are allowed. It does cause a little backup on westbound Merritt at Main Street, and some people believe that warrants making left turns prohibited. We used to have left turns prohibited there, but people were still going through. There's a lot of division there, and the council and the staff will have to wrestle with that issue and take the traffic advisory board's recommendation into consideration.
Great, so we'll see what happens with that one. And then we're going to squeeze in our last one here is Resolution 14-271, along with a council discussion item having to do with some liquor licenses.
There were multiple liquor licenses that were talked about that have been inactive. A couple of them, we've resolved those issues. In this case, this is one Walleyes on 6th Avenue. They haven't been in use for a year or close to a year, and so the council has to determine whether or not this license should be renewed, and we require a hearing on that. So that's the main focus. But the bigger issue is how do we deal with these issues, because we normally only bring them back at annual renewal time. That means they've been inactive for anywhere from 11 to 23 months. I think the council would like to see a little more consistency, so we're suggesting that we get a procedure that the minute they become a year inactive, we bring it back to council.
So really it's equal for everyone, kind of more fair along the lines.
And the whole idea is try to make it more fair so that nobody feels they're being treated differently. The minute you hit a year of inactivity, then we will bring the issue up for you. So that'll be the primary discussion that'll occur at the council meeting, and I think it'll be a good discussion, and I think it's a good change so that we treat everybody the same.
And it looks like that's all of our items for today, so we're going to go ahead and close that out. Again, the City Council meeting is this Tuesday, June 10th, 2014. You can watch it live on City Cable 10 and on our website at oshkoshcommunitymedia.org, also on 101.9 WOCT. Don't forget, if you have a question for City Manager Mark Roloff, you can send it to ci.oshkosh.wi.us, and he will answer it on the next episode of City Manager's Report. So again, thanks so much for joining us as always, and we'll see you next time on your City Manager's Report.